There are hundreds of D.B. Cooper suspects out there, and among these hundreds of suspects, there is certainly no shortage of unique characters. Men like Robert Ragshaw, Sheridan Peterson, Skip Hall, Ted Braden, and Milton Vordahl. But of all these Cooper suspects, one man clearly stands above all of the rest in his quirky uniqueness. William Wolfgang Gossett.
We don't know who he was, where he came from, or where he went.
First off, let's get this out of the way. Though he was born in 1930 as William Pratt Gossett, at some point in the early 70s he changed his name to Wolfgang Gossett. I don't know why he did this, but given what we know about the guy, I would say it's unsurprising that he would randomly change his name in his 40s. His father, Orion Gossett, was one of the U.S. Navy's very first pilots and served in World War I, World War II, and even into the Korean War. Growing up on various military bases is how Gossett found himself in Hawaii on December 7, 1941. That's right, 11-year-old Wolfgang Gossett was an eyewitness to the attack on Pearl Harbor, which is where his father was stationed. At 15, he lied about his age to join the Army Air Force, serving briefly in the Pacific Theater as World War II came to an end. He stayed with the Air Force throughout the early 50s and served in the Korean War. After the war, Gossett took a short break from the military, earning a degree from Fresno City College and even serving as a police officer in Merced, California. In 1955, he joined the U.S. Marine Corps, where he served primarily as a legal technician in the JAG office. He had a keen legal mind and graduated as an honor student from the Naval School of Justice. The Marines then paid for him to attend Blackstone School of Law in Chicago, where he earned his law degree in 1962. From there, he worked for several years with the Public Defender's Office in Weber County, Utah, before re-enlisting in the Army during the Vietnam War. He did serve in the Vietnam War in the late 60s, although not in a combat role, serving yet again in the legal branch. Upon return from Vietnam, he became an ROTC instructor at Weber State, leaving the military for good shortly thereafter. He found post-military employment in a variety of occupations, serving at various times as the administrative director of a jail, an English teacher, a disc jockey, host of a paranormal radio show, and even as a Catholic priest with a penchant for performing exorcisms. He was also a writer, once winning an award for a one-act play he wrote titled The Golden Dolphin. As for his personal life, he was married 3 times and had 6 children, I think, and died on September 1, 2003 at the age of 73. Okay, with that bio out of the way, let's talk Cooper. In November 2007, Galen Cook, a D.B. Cooper researcher and attorney, appeared on the Coast to Coast AM radio show to discuss the case. Gossett's youngest son, Greg, happened to be listening and reached out to Cook, quickly convincing the attorney that his father and Cooper were the same person. Greg claims that on his 21st birthday, his father confessed to him that he was D.B. Cooper. Gossett apparently did this with all of his sons at some point or another, making each of them swear that they would never reveal his secret until after his death. He made similar confessions to 2 different attorneys as well. During his confession, he showed Greg a pair of keys to a safety deposit box in Vancouver, Canada, with the implication being that this is where some of the money still was, or had been at some point. It's not really clear. Greg also remembers that during the Christmas of 1971, his father, who was notoriously terrible with money, showing off bank bands stacked with $100 bills. Greg states that this memory is clear to him because it was the first time he had ever seen a $100 bill. Gossett was known to gamble quite a bit, so these could have been winnings from a particularly lucky evening at the casino. But it's not a huge leap to imagine that this could have been the result of Gossett laundering the 20s from the Cooper heist. Greg also tells a really intriguing story about something his stepmother Marilyn told him. She was Gossett's final wife and told Greg that at some point in 1978 or 1979, she and Gossett were fishing on Tina Bar when Gossett randomly remarked that this was the sort of place that D.B. Cooper would have buried some of his money to throw off the authorities. This story, of course, takes place before Brian Ingram found part of the Cooper ransom on Tina Bar in February 1980. Although the Gossetts were still living in Salt Lake City at the time, so I'm unsure why they would have been fishing on a sandbar outside Vancouver, Washington. I should point out here that Gossett was quite well known to be a world-class bullshitter and storyteller. I mean, this guy was the host of a paranormal radio show after all. Okay, now let's dive into some more tangible things now and compare him to the Cooper profile. We'll start with the elephant in the room, and that is his resemblance to the sketch, which many people really love Gossett for. At first glance, he really does appear to be a great match to the final Composite B sketch of Cooper. But is it really that great? I don't think so. I think what makes the resemblance so striking is the hair is essentially a perfect match. The forehead is right as well. But let's remove the hair and study it now. It's not really so close, is it? What stands out most to me is the nose is very different. In all of the Cooper sketches, his nose is a bit narrow and kind of comes to a point. Gossett's nose isn't like that at all. And where are Gossett's eyebrows? That's one thing about Gossett that he just seems to lack in general are well-defined eyebrows. So I really think that the main reason people believe he resembles the sketch so much is that the hairline and forehead seem to be perfect matches. Take that away and it's just not so great. But what about Cooper's other physical features? As for age, Cooper was described as mid-40s, possibly younger or possibly older, but it's pretty safe to say that Cooper was likely somewhere in his 40s. Gossett was 41 at the time of the hijacking, so that's fine. Gossett's eyes are also brown, and Cooper's were dark as well. One major bonus with Gossett is this turkey neck of his. Passenger Bill Mitchell, who sat directly across from Cooper, had a really unique side profile of the man, and he was adamant that Cooper had a turkey neck or something unique about his neck. He said it was as if Cooper had been fat and lost weight, leaving some sagging skin. Well, we have a turkey neck in spades for Gossett. He really does nail this element of the Cooper description very well. But that's really where it kind of ends, with him being a match to the physical description. His height is something I've never been able to find concrete evidence for, so all I can do to try and figure out his height is to create my own circumstantial evidence that might give me a clue. I've seen 3 photos of him standing next to others, and in all 3 he is shorter than everyone else. First, we have this photo of him being given his law degree in 1962. He's clearly shorter than the other guy. Next, in this photo of Gossett, taken in November of 1971, the same month as the hijacking, he is slightly shorter than these 3 ROTC cadets. But then we have this photo of him from the late 70s, and he is noticeably much smaller than everyone else. The FBI's official description of Cooper is 5'10" to 6 feet tall, so he was considered to be taller than the average man of his time. Unless these photos all just happen to have tall individuals in them, I dare say Gossett was not taller than the average man of his time. His skin tone is another problem with the physical description that he has. Essentially, every eyewitness to Cooper stated that he had a darker than average complexion, with words like swarthy and olive being thrown around. Yet in this color footage of Gossett, I'm not seeing anything other than a man with average fair skin. Likewise, Cooper was described by 2 eyewitnesses, including by perhaps our best eyewitness to Cooper's face, Florence Schaffner, as looking Latin or having some sort of Native American ancestry. I just don't see anything with Gossett that would make you think he had some sort of ethnic flavor to him. Finally, one of the few unique features of Cooper's that we have really good evidence for is that he had this noticeable protruding lower lip, also described by a stewardess as a pouty lip. The FBI files we have on the Cooper case are full of eyewitnesses discussing Cooper's lower lip. Here are 2 of the lower lips of suspects that eyewitnesses thought were similar to Cooper's. You can also see this heavy lower lip in all of the sketches. Yet I would describe Gossett as having thin lips. There just isn't anything notable about his lips that has any similarity to the sketches or to those suspect lips. Alright, let's move on to Cooper's traits and personality. Like Cooper, Gossett was a known smoker and drinker, so that's a check. What about his knowledge of aviation? Gossett was in the Air Force for a time, and his father was a pioneer of naval aviation. So I do think he would possess enough general knowledge about aviation to be comfortable in the air. His son Greg also recalls that his father would always point out to him 727s whenever they would see one at an airport or in the sky. Take that for what it's worth. What about parachuting? His time in the Air Force would have exposed him to parachutes, but more importantly, we do know that he received his jump wings at some point with the Army because we can see them on his uniform in this photo here. But despite having his jump wings, he certainly was not a paratrooper or a special forces type of guy. He may have bragged about such things at some point, but his time in the military was mostly spent working in the legal branch. Does he have any criminal history? Well, I've not found any whatsoever for Gossett. Now, how much weight you want to put on Cooper having or not having a criminal history is up for you to decide. But I personally do think that Cooper had some criminality in his background at some point. Because let's not forget that Cooper was an individual who woke up one morning, rolled out of bed, and then seemed to be totally comfortable committing extortion, armed robbery, larceny, kidnapping, and aircraft piracy. And lastly, we do know that Gossett's DNA failed to match any of the 3 partial DNA profiles lifted from the Cooper tie. But given the way that the tie was handled for decades while in FBI custody, I'm very dubious that any of those 3 profiles actually belong to Cooper. So I don't hold it against him or any other suspects if their DNA is not a match to what the FBI has. Overall, Gossett's not a wretched suspect, but I don't think he's a great one either. Really, the only thing that would make him a suspect at all are the stories that he told about himself to others. And again, this was a man known to embellish and invent stories about himself. He was a paranormal radio host, he did perform exorcisms, and he also claimed that he could communicate with the dead. So I'm not putting too much stock into anything this guy says that is even remotely fantastical, especially when it's about himself.
But as I readied myself to leave, a girl's voice spoke to me. Not a psychic voice, but a voice that said, "Wolfgang,
Come and see me.
I know who you are. Please come see me." And I went upstairs and I could feel the presence of this entity. And as I went up into the attic area, closet area of this home, this entity simply manifested herself, wearing the attire that you would expect a young girl to wear at that time. I performed a very humble prayer to encourage those from the other side to come take her.
Right.
So you guys let me know in the comments what you think about Mr. Gossett. And that's all I've got for today. So like and subscribe and all that YouTube-y stuff, and I will talk to you guys again soon.